Across decades of farming, one truth stands tall: a tractor can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Some machines were built without safety in mind. Others pushed limits that should never have been tested. Here are the 12 deadliest tractors ever built. Number 12. Case IH 895XL. When the Case International 895XL rolled out in the mid-1980s, it arrived as part of a bold attempt to modernize farm operations. Built during the merging years of International Harvester and Case, this model was meant to combine reliability with updated comfort and style. With a full cab, sleek red finish, and an engine powerful enough for medium-scale fieldwork, it was marketed as the future of compact agricultural machinery. But while the exterior was appealing, the dangers that lurked beneath the surface were far from obvious. One of the most overlooked risks with this tractor was visibility. The sloped hood and cab layout reduced the operator's field of vision, especially when attaching implements or working near slopes. In several recorded cases, poor forward visibility played a critical role in accidental collisions, rollovers, and unintended contact with workers or livestock. Operators often assumed they had a clear path, only to learn the hard way that blind spots were larger than expected. Rear visibility was also limited, particularly when backing with heavy attachments. The position of the cab's rear pillars and the height of the window line often forced operators to rely heavily on guesswork. When reversing with trailers, mowers, or plows, that lack of precision led to several crushing incidents involving obstacles or bystanders. In tight farmyards or confined field boundaries, this design flaw became more than just an inconvenience, it became a genuine hazard. What made the situation worse was the tractor's relatively high center of gravity. While the machine was compact in length, it sat tall, and when combined with narrow wheel spacing and heavy rear implements, it became dangerously unstable on uneven terrain. Rollovers during turns on hilly ground or during transport were not uncommon, and unlike many modern tractors, rollover protection was not standardized on all versions, especially in early builds sold without factory cabs or retrofitted safety bars. Operators who removed doors or windows to improve airflow often reduced the structural integrity of the cab, eliminating what little protection remained during an accident. These open configurations, while common in warmer climates, further increased exposure during overturns or side slips, especially when working near ditches or embankments. The heart of the Case International 895XL was a 4-cylinder diesel engine with a displacement of 4,000 cubic centimeters, equal to 244 cubic inches. It delivered around 80 horsepower, which placed it in the mid-tier power category. Torque figures hovered close to 220 pound-feet, making it capable under load, but also deceptively quick when shifting weight unevenly across the frame. Top speed reached approximately 19 miles per hour, which for many rural areas meant traveling roads without proper guardrails or shoulders. Several tragic accidents occurred during off-field travel, where braking distances and traction control simply did not match modern safety expectations. Sudden lane changes or steering corrections at speed sometimes caused the rear to sway or the front axle to bounce, both signs of poor stability under transport conditions. The Case International 895XL reminds us that even well-built machines from trusted brands can carry silent risks, especially when comfort and power are prioritized over control and visibility. Number 11. Zetor 7745. Released during the late 1980s, the Zetor 7745 became a popular utility tractor across Europe, Asia, and parts of North America. It was known for its simplicity, affordability, and ease of maintenance, making it an attractive option for mid-sized farms. However, the same features that made it widely adopted also contributed to serious safety concerns that emerged during regular operation. One of the primary issues was its rollover risk. The tractor's design included a relatively high center of gravity and narrow wheel spacing, especially in earlier configurations that lacked adjustable rear axles. On slopes or soft ground, this made the tractor unstable, particularly when carrying rear-mounted implements or driving at speed. Several accidents were reported when operators lost balance during basic field turns or while maneuvering uneven terrain. The danger increased significantly when loads were raised or when braking downhill under pressure. Another problem was the lack of standardized safety equipment. Many early units were shipped without rollover protection structures or enclosed cabs. Seatbelts were also uncommon. This meant that even a slow-speed rollover often led to the operator being thrown from the tractor or trapped beneath it. In areas where field boundaries were sloped or where operators drove between road sections, these design gaps became life-threatening. The Zetor 7745 was powered by a 4-cylinder diesel engine with a displacement of 3,933 cubic inches centimeters, equal to 240 cubic inches. It was rated for approximately 75 horsepower, which allowed it to handle a range of implements and transport work without difficulty. However, under load on sloped ground, the tractor's rear-heavy layout could shift quickly, making recovery difficult once momentum was lost. Torque output measured near 220 pound-feet, which gave it solid pulling strength in dry conditions. But in wet or hilly environments, the torque sometimes worked against the operator by increasing wheel spin or tipping forces under traction loss. With a top speed of around 18 miles per hour, road travel was frequent, yet braking limitations added risk when descending with a trailer or shifting weight unexpectedly. While the Zetor 7745 served thousands of farms efficiently, its structural layout and missing safety systems made it vulnerable to accidents that could have been avoided with better design. Number 10. Ursus C-360. First introduced in the early 1970s, the Ursus C-360 became one of Poland's most widely used tractors and found its way to farms across Eastern Europe and beyond. Built by Ursus, a manufacturer known for basic, durable machines, this model was designed to serve small and medium-sized farms through daily chores, plowing, and light transport. Its mechanical simplicity made it easy to repair, but that same simplicity came with critical trade-offs in operator safety. What made the Ursus C-360 especially dangerous was the complete absence of modern protective features. Many units were delivered without rollover protection structures, safety frames, or enclosed cabs. Operators had no shielding in the event of a tip-over or collision, and seatbelts were almost never installed. In the decades following its release, several fatal accidents were recorded, where rollovers led to crushing injuries, incidents that could have been avoided had the tractor been equipped with even basic safety reinforcements. Another common issue was its poor weight distribution. With the engine sitting forward and minimal rear ballast, the tractor had a tendency to lift under load, particularly when hauling or using a front loader. On inclines or uneven terrain, that imbalance often led to loss of traction or rear flipping. Combined with manual steering and limited braking power, control in critical moments became difficult. Operators working on narrow pathways, embankments, or slopes were especially vulnerable when reacting to sudden shifts in terrain. Power came from a 2-cylinder diesel engine with a displacement of 2,190 cubic centimeters, equal to 134 cubic inches. While simple and fuel-efficient, the engine's compact layout contributed to the tractor's light front end and imbalance during heavy lifting. With an output of around 45 horsepower, it was capable for its time, but many operators overloaded it to meet rising demands, unintentionally raising the likelihood of mechanical failure and tipping. Torque output was near 120 pound-feet, offering decent pull for smaller implements. However, once traction broke, especially on wet or inclined surfaces, the tractor's limited stability worked against the operator. Speed topped out at about 16 miles per hour, which was sufficient for short hauls, but braking was manual and often unreliable, particularly under load or when descending. The Ursus C-360 proved that durability alone doesn't equal safety. Its long service life masked design flaws that exposed thousands of operators to serious risks during everyday use. If you think those tractors were risky, the ones ahead pushed danger to a whole new level. From hidden hazards to real-world accidents, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Hit like and subscribe to stay with us. Number 9. Fiat 640. By the mid-1970s, the Fiat 640 had become a familiar sight across farms in Southern Europe, North Africa, and South Asia. Manufactured by Fiat Trattori, this model was part of a global push to deliver affordable, mid-sized utility tractors to growing agricultural regions. It was designed to be tough, economical, and easy to maintain, and in many ways, it met those goals. But alongside its widespread success came a history of serious safety issues that placed operators at considerable risk. One of the most frequent problems reported with the Fiat 640 was its lack of rollover protection. Many units were shipped without factory-installed safety frames or cabs, and seatbelts were rarely included. In countries where tractor safety standards were either minimal or unenforced, this model was commonly used without any structural safeguards. As a result, rollovers led to high injury rates, particularly during field turning or when operating on slopes. The narrow wheelbase and relatively high center of gravity only increased the chance of tipping. The tractor's braking system added to the danger. Many early models came with dry disc brakes, which were prone to fading under continuous use, especially when towing loads downhill. In emergency situations or during sudden stops on uneven terrain, these brakes often lack the stopping power needed to keep the machine under control. Operators working near canals, terraces, or roadways were especially vulnerable to runaway incidents. Powering the Fiat 640 was a 4-cylinder diesel engine with a displacement of 3,130 cubic centimeters, equal to 191 cubic inches. It delivered around 60 horsepower, which gave it enough capacity to handle plows, trailers, and rotary tillers. However, under full load, the tractor's limited stability became more pronounced, especially when paired with rear-mounted implements or heavy drawbar pulls. Torque figures hovered near 170 pound-feet, which worked well for general field work, but became problematic when traction broke unexpectedly. Loss of control was common during turns with uneven loading, and in several cases, tractors flipped backward while trying to pull heavy equipment from soft ground. Its top speed reached close to 17 miles per hour, but the lack of responsive steering and poor brake modulation made road travel especially dangerous on older or unmaintained units. The Fiat 640 was a capable machine in the right conditions, but in real-world farming, it often faced terrain and workloads that exposed its flaws. When used without proper safety equipment, it became one of the most hazardous tractors of its time. Number 8. Same Explorer 290. During the early 1990s, Same Deutzfahr introduced the Explorer 290 as a refined alternative to traditional utility tractors. Targeted at mid-sized farms across Europe, the model quickly gained attention for its upgraded controls, modern styling, and improved maneuverability. But beneath the polished design were structural choices that raised serious safety concerns in real-world use. Operators often encountered problems when navigating uneven ground or working on slopes. The tractor's sharp steering response and narrow wheel stance, though ideal for agility in tight fields, made it unstable when paired with mounted implements or heavy front loaders. Several accidents occurred when the machine was reversing on inclines or attempting tight turns with shifting loads. The resulting rollovers were not uncommon, especially in older units, equipped only with basic roll bars and no enclosed cab. Control sensitivity also played a role in many of the recorded incidents. The combination of hydrostatic steering, strong traction from the four-wheel drive system, and unbalanced load distribution made the tractor difficult to manage in wet or uneven soil. Even slight miscalculations in direction or speed often caused the center of gravity to shift abruptly, leaving little time for correction. In many cases, operators found themselves unable to recover once momentum pushed the machine off its intended line. Power delivery came from a 4-cylinder diesel engine producing around 90 horsepower, making the tractor capable of running heavier implements across large fields. The engine had a displacement of 4,125 cubic centimeters, equal to 252 cubic inches, and it provided enough output for demanding fieldwork. But under full load, especially when operating on soft ground, the added force amplified the machine's tendency to tilt during uneven weight transfers. Torque levels were measured close to 230 pound-feet, and while effective for towing and tilling, this pulling power contributed to several rear flip accidents when traction was suddenly regained on wet soil. Speed was another factor. Traveling at nearly 20 miles per hour, the tractor could move quickly between fields, but its braking system and frame design did not always respond well to sudden stops, particularly on gravel or downhill paths. The Same Explorer 290 was built for performance, but not all performance gains translate into safe operation. Its advanced capabilities, when not matched with proper protective structures and load handling stability, exposed operators to risks that many did not anticipate until it was too late. Number 7. Massey Ferguson 390T. Built during a time of increasing demand for more capable utility tractors, it promised to combine strength with user-friendly controls. Its turbocharged engine gave it a performance edge, and its compact frame made it attractive for farms with mixed terrain. Yet, for all its mechanical appeal, this model revealed significant dangers that placed both experienced and novice operators at serious risk. What made the tractor especially hazardous was the combination of added power and a lightweight frame. Unlike heavier models built for stability, the 390T could become unbalanced when handling larger implements or traveling at higher speeds. Operators pushing the machine to its limits often found that its rear end lifted unexpectedly under load, especially when pulling from elevated points or during sudden shifts in traction. In more than a few cases, this led to violent rearward rollovers, accidents that occurred in seconds and left little room for recovery. Another frequent issue came from the tractor's braking system. Many owners reported inconsistent brake performance over time, particularly under heavy use or when descending with trailers. In emergency conditions, especially on wet soil or gravel roads, the machine's stopping power wasn't always reliable. This became especially dangerous during transport between fields, where momentum combined with inadequate brakes led to several reported runaways and collisions. The tractor was powered by a 3-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine that delivered close to 90 horsepower, which was a significant step up for many operators transitioning from older, naturally aspirated machines. The engine's displacement was 3,329 cubic centimeters, equal to 203 cubic inches. This increase in power was appreciated for tough field jobs, but it also meant that the machine could reach higher speeds and operate under greater strain without the corresponding upgrades to its structural safety. Torque output hovered near 235 pound-feet, giving it more than enough force for towing and plowing, but without front weights or careful weight distribution, this torque made the tractor prone to sudden tipping during aggressive starts or abrupt changes in direction. Travel speed peaked around 20 miles per hour, which made the machine faster on the road than many of its contemporaries. Unfortunately, this speed advantage also meant less time to react when control was lost. The Massey Ferguson 390T showed how increased horsepower and turbocharging could turn into liabilities when not paired with stronger safety systems. What looked like a compact workhorse became a dangerous machine in the wrong hands or the wrong conditions. Number 6. Dongfeng DF-254. Imported in large numbers during the early 2000s, the Dongfeng DF-254 was positioned as a low-cost, compact utility tractor for small farms and landowners seeking basic mechanization. Manufactured in China and widely distributed across Asia, Africa, and some Western markets, it promised simple operation and affordability. But behind its modest price tag were serious flaws that made it one of the most dangerous tractors ever sold in its class. One of the most alarming issues was the build quality. While many compact tractors are designed to endure tough conditions, the DF-254 struggled under routine use. Operators frequently reported premature failures in critical areas such as steering linkages, brake systems, and hydraulic fittings. In several instances, the brakes failed outright during descents, causing the tractor to lurch forward uncontrollably, especially when towing small trailers. These failures were not just mechanical inconveniences, they created situations where operators lost complete control with little to no warning. Visibility and protection were also limited. Many units were shipped with minimal rollover protection, often just a basic bar, and lacked enclosed cabs or seatbelts. As a result, even low-speed rollovers became fatal in several reported cases. The tractor's short wheelbase and lightweight frame contributed to instability, especially when turning with raised front loaders or when uneven terrain shifted weight suddenly. The risk was compounded by the lack of a counterweight system, which left the rear end light and prone to tipping under load. Was a 3-cylinder diesel design with a displacement of 1,533 cubic centimeters, equal to 94 cubic inches. It generated around 25 horsepower, which seemed adequate for small-scale work, but often led owners to overuse the machine beyond its safe operating limits. The engine's limited power encouraged aggressive gear shifting and overloading, both of which worsened stability and increased wear on key components. Torque was measured near 58 pound-feet, enough for light hauling and tilling in flat fields. But on uneven ground or soft surfaces, this power failed to compensate for the lack of weight and poor traction. Operators found the machine difficult to manage under changing conditions, especially during sudden stops or turns. Road speed reached approximately 16 miles per hour. And while that may seem modest, the poor handling and weak braking system made even short travel hazardous. The Dongfeng DF-254 was built for affordability, but that cost-cutting came at the expense of safety, reliability, and control. For many who bought it expecting basic utility, it delivered far more risk than reward. Number 5. Jinma 284. In an effort to meet rising global demand for affordable farm machinery, the Jinma 284 was introduced as a compact four-wheel drive tractor aimed at small farms, homesteads, and rural properties. Manufactured in China and exported to dozens of countries under various brand names, it quickly gained popularity for its low price, simple mechanics, and ease of access. But while it offered basic utility for a fraction of the cost of mainstream models, it also introduced serious dangers that many buyers never anticipated. One of the biggest concerns with the Jinma 284 was its inconsistent manufacturing quality. Depending on where and when a unit was built, critical components such as steering linkages, clutch assemblies, and brake systems varied in reliability. This inconsistency led to dangerous failures in the field. Operators reported cases of sudden brake loss, steering stiffness, and malfunctioning hydraulics, each of which could turn routine chores into emergencies in a matter of seconds. The tractor's rollover risk was another major problem. Despite being marketed with four-wheel drive and a relatively compact footprint, the tractor was top-heavy when loaded and had a narrow stance that made it unstable on uneven terrain. Early models often shipped without rollover protection structures or seat belts, and even where basic ROPS bars were installed, the lack of full cab enclosures left operators exposed. Rollovers were not uncommon when climbing hills, reversing with mounted implements, or navigating soft, sloped ground. Power was provided by a 3-cylinder diesel engine, delivering about 28 horsepower, with a displacement of 1,532 cubic centimeters, equal to 93 cubic inches. While suitable for light tillage and towing, many owners attempted to use the tractor for heavier applications, unaware of its limitations. This pushed the frame, brakes, and transmission past their safe operating thresholds, increasing the likelihood of mechanical failure under stress. Torque output hovered around 63 pound-feet, giving it just enough pulling power for small wagons or plows. But under load on uneven terrain, the engine's torque could shift weight abruptly, causing instability during acceleration or while turning sharply. Operators who lacked experience or training often struggled to manage these sudden movements, particularly when reacting to shifting soil conditions. Top speed reached nearly 16 miles per hour, but poor suspension and unresponsive braking made road travel risky, especially when towing loads downhill. The Jinma 284 promised utility at a low cost, but the absence of reliable safety systems and quality control made it one of the most hazardous compact tractors to operate under real-world farm conditions. Number 4. Eicher 485. During the push for accessible mechanization across India and neighboring regions, the Eicher 485 became a common presence on farms looking to move beyond animal-driven tools. It promised a balance between simplicity, durability, and low maintenance, features that appealed to first-time tractor buyers and smallholders. But the very qualities that made it widespread also contributed to serious safety concerns that surfaced in daily operation. A major issue was its imbalance under load. The tractor's frame and weight distribution made it vulnerable to tipping backward when pulling heavy implements or trailers from high hitch points. Without adequate front ballast or a proper understanding of the load angle, operators often found themselves in sudden and dangerous situations. Rear rollovers occurred during what seemed like routine tasks, hauling stuck equipment, climbing uneven terrain, or accelerating on loose soil, all situations where the front wheels would lift unexpectedly, leaving little room to recover. The lack of protective features only made matters worse. Many units were sold with open platforms and without any rollover protection structures or seatbelts. While this helped keep the price low, it left operators exposed in the event of a tip. In several reported accidents, the absence of safety enclosures contributed directly to fatalities during rearward flips or side rollovers, especially in hilly or poorly leveled fields. Under the hood, the Eicher 485 ran on a 3-cylinder diesel engine that produced around 45 horsepower. Its displacement measured 2,986 cubic centimeters, equal to 182 cubic inches. That power was sufficient for plowing, seeding, and basic transport work. But as workloads increased, the engine was often pushed beyond its limits. Operators attempting longer hours or deeper tillage faced overheating and reduced control, particularly when handling heavier equipment the tractor wasn't designed to support. Torque was delivered at around 130 pound-feet, enough to manage lighter tasks, but prone to sudden torque spikes when equipment met resistance in the soil. These moments often caused the rear tires to dig in, transferring load stress to the front end and triggering wheel lifts. Without fast reaction or ballast correction, the situation escalated quickly. At top speed, the tractor could reach 20 miles per hour, but braking systems weren't always responsive enough to stop safely under load. When moving between fields or down-sloped paths, slow brake response added another layer of risk to an already unstable machine. The Eicher 485 became a trusted tool for many, but its lack of basic safety engineering turned simple tasks into high-risk situations that too often ended in injury or worse. Number 3. Farmtrac 60. As demand grew for multi-purpose tractors suited to both fieldwork and transport, the Farmtrac 60 emerged as a competitive option for small to mid-sized farms. Manufactured in India and distributed across various developing markets, it was seen as a cost-effective alternative to higher-end models. Farmers appreciated its rugged frame and straightforward mechanics, but behind its popularity lay serious safety shortcomings that made it a threat under the wrong conditions. One of the most frequent hazards with the Farmtrac 60 was related to braking performance. The tractor was often used for hauling loads across rough terrain and connecting distant fields. However, many operators noted that the braking system, especially when under strain, lacked the responsiveness needed for quick stops. On downhill grades or when pulling overloaded trailers, this delay in braking control became a major risk. Several reports of runaways and failed stops on narrow farm paths pointed directly to this flaw. Another critical issue was its rear-end lift during heavy drawbar operations. Farmers working with plows or carts often found the rear-mounted weight distribution could cause the front wheels to rise, particularly on soft or uneven ground. This was made worse by the absence of front ballast or weight compensation, leading to tipbacks that happened quickly and with little warning. Without rollover protection structures or seatbelts on many early models, even a minor loss of balance became dangerous. The tractor's engine delivered moderate power for routine farm work, generating around 50 horsepower. Displacement reached 3,135 cubic centimeters, equal to 191 cubic inches. This output allowed it to cover wide acreage and handle transport tasks with ease, but it also gave operators a false sense of security. When used for heavier implements or longer hours, the engine's load capacity often exceeded what the frame and steering could safely support. Torque delivery measured near 160 pound-feet, which gave the machine enough pull for dissing and trailering. However, in wet conditions or during sudden shifts in terrain, that torque sometimes became a liability. It increased the risk of wheel spin or uneven traction, especially without the assistance of advanced differential locks or load management systems. Top speed approached 19 miles per hour, which made the Farmtrac 60 appealing for transport, but also heightened the danger on narrow or unpaved roads. Combined with braking limitations, the higher travel speed increased the chance of rollover or loss of control, especially when hauling full loads at the end of a long workday. The Farmtrac 60 promised durability and value, but overlooked safety design made it a machine that could turn from helpful to hazardous with little notice. Number 2. HMT 5911. When the HMT 5911 was introduced, it carried the weight of national pride. Manufactured by Hindustan Machine Tools in collaboration with Zetor, it was intended to serve as a powerful, domestically built tractor for India's growing agricultural sector. Marketed as durable, reliable, and suited for tough field work, it found success across the country, particularly in regions with large land holdings. But the promise of strength came with engineering flaws that exposed countless operators to serious harm. One of the most pressing dangers came from its unwieldy size and poor weight distribution. The tractor's rear-heavy layout made it vulnerable to rearing, especially when using mounted implements or during sudden throttle increases. In cases where heavy loads were pulled from above the drawbar level, the front end would often lift without warning. Without proper front ballast or operator training, this issue led to rearward overturns that proved fatal in many documented incidents. The tractor also suffered from outdated safety design. Unlike newer models that came standard with rollover protection structures and seatbelts, the HMT 5911 was often sold with an open platform and minimal operator protection. This left users exposed during rollovers, especially in uneven fields or near ditches and embankments. For many, even a minor misjudgment in balance turned deadly due to the complete lack of containment. Power output was substantial for its time, delivering nearly 60 horsepower. The engine had a displacement of 3,779 cubic centimeters, equal to 230 cubic inches. On large fields, this allowed the tractor to pull heavier equipment and manage broader cultivation. However, when paired with implements not suited to its frame, the extra power became a risk multiplier rather than an asset. Torque delivery reached close to 220 pound-feet, giving the tractor enough strength for deep tilling and long-distance hauling. But the combination of high torque and limited traction controls created problems in loose soil or while turning under load. Loss of steering stability in these moments often resulted in abrupt lateral shifts that the tractor's design couldn't correct in time. Top speeds were around 18 miles per hour, which seemed reasonable on paper but proved excessive given the tractor's outdated braking system. Braking under load on slopes or gravel paths was inconsistent, increasing the chances of collisions, jackknifes, or rollovers when trying to stop quickly. The HMT 5911 represented a significant milestone in local tractor manufacturing, but its outdated safety features and flawed balance made it a machine that required constant caution and punished those who underestimated its risks. Number 1. IMT 539. Few tractors have enjoyed the kind of global presence that the IMT 539 achieved during its production run. Built by Industria Maschina I Traktora, or IMT in Yugoslavia, it became one of the most widely used utility tractors across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Africa and Asia. Introduced in the early 1960s and produced for decades with minimal design changes, it was praised for its simplicity, mechanical durability, and ease of repair. But while it became a trusted tool for millions of farmers, its safety record told a different story, one marked by severe risks that made it the deadliest tractor ever mass-produced. The tractor's most dangerous flaw was its complete lack of integrated safety systems. Early models were sold without rollover protection structures, and for many years, even seatbelts were considered optional. In countries where farm safety regulations were minimal or non-existent, most operators used the machine exactly as it came, unprotected and exposed. As a result, rollover accidents became tragically common. On sloped terrain, especially when using rear implements or making tight turns, the tractor's narrow track width and high center of gravity created the perfect conditions for tipping. Stability under load was another serious issue. The rear-heavy layout and lightweight front end made the IMT 539 prone to flipping backward when operators attempted to pull heavy equipment from high hitch points. This danger was amplified by the fact that most users were working without front ballast or any counterweights. In countless cases, tractors reared suddenly during starts or while attempting to free-stuck equipment, sending the front wheels into the air and the operator backward into disaster. Visibility and operator comfort were also lacking. The open platform design left drivers exposed not only during rollovers, but also to falling objects and collisions with low-hanging branches or structures. In densely planted fields or tree-lined plots, even basic tasks became hazardous. Without a protective cab or shielding, routine work carried an element of risk that newer tractors had long since addressed. The machine's engine delivered just over 30 horsepower, driven by a two-cylinder diesel unit with a displacement of 2,220 cubic centimeters, equal to 135 cubic inches. While modest in output, the engine had enough torque, close to 90 pound-feet, to perform essential tillage, hauling, and transport jobs. However, when power was misapplied or directed through improperly hitched implements, it triggered sudden shifts in traction and stability, setting off a chain of events that the operator often could not correct in time. Top speed was just under 16 miles per hour, seemingly low by modern standards. But with mechanical brakes that faded quickly and no assisted steering, even that speed became dangerous when traveling downhill or on uneven roads. Operators often relied on manual skill alone to control a machine that offered no second chances when something went wrong. The IMT 539 wasn't designed to harm, but decades of use without the most basic safety features made it a deadly machine in too many cases. Its legacy is complex, widely trusted, heavily used, and mechanically sound. But in terms of operator safety, it remains unmatched for the number of accidents and lives it cost. These weren't just machines, they were warnings. Built to work, but remembered for the risks they carried. Got another dangerous model we missed? Tell us in the comments, hit like if you learned something new, and subscribe for more stories from the field.